Hello and welcome to another edition of Power of the Pen. I am LaWanna Bradford and I am excited because this is Women's History Month. So I want to give a special shout out to all the women around the world, both our historical figures, those giants whose shoulders we're standing on, and those of us who are living history. We're making our mark and making our difference for the next generation. Thank you for joining us on A360 TV as well as Facebook and LinkedIn, and I have a very special guest, none other than Dr. Orienthia Speakman. And this powerhouse is shaking things up. And it's amazing when we can take our lived experience, learn those lessons, and then translate them to solutions for success to others. And that's what we're going to get into. She is a resilience coach. She has a global integrative approach where she combines both her psychology expertise and her love of God, scripture, into an approach to help individuals overcome those tsunamis, those moments in life that beat you down and where you may feel depressed, despondent, and how do you get over it? How do you refresh your life? She is an author, transformational coach, and a licensed counselor. She is also the CEO and founder of Speak O Worldwide, and she believes in bridging the gap between unwanted realities to desired results. How is it going, Dr. Orienthia?
It's going great, LaWanna. Thank you so much for having me on today.
Right? We've all been there. Like we're looking at life and we're like, okay, really, God? Dr. Orienthia has a book entitled Really, God? And it's a guide to bouncing back when life has knocked you down. And we've all been there where we're like, okay, did this just happen to me? And we may come from a place of confusion, frustration, perhaps even anger, right? It's like another one, another issue.
Yes.
So I want to turn this over to you, Dr. Orienthia. What was it that ended up being the catalyst for you to realize that you had to write this book? You had to share your story to help transform life. If you don't mind just giving us a little backstory on you and those tsunamic episodes that you've experienced.
Well, thank you so much, LaWanna. As I stated earlier, I am so grateful that these levels of tsunamis took place because I'm in a place, or I was at a place where I experienced my father passing, who was my mentor in the ministry, my dad, because I'm a daddy's girl. Not only did my father pass within that same year, I was escorted basically out of my church, where I had served for over 9 years and was pretty much asked to leave. And then on top of that, all of that went on in this same year, I went through a divorce. So I felt like it was one thing after another thing after another thing, where I felt like I couldn't even feel like I didn't even have a moment to grasp for air. And I felt that I was in my God-given assignment. So my question was, really, God, am I really going through this? Am I really dealing with these situations back to back? Am I not doing what you're asking me to do? Why is it that I'm the one that's chosen to deal with these? Kind of like that Job experience. I felt like I was going through my Job experience, and most people can relate to a Job experience. So that's why I felt that it was in me to be able to tell my story, to give others comfort in knowing that these things will happen in our life. Your tsunami may not be the same as mine, but these things will happen in life. And how do we get from that to our next?
Yeah, I don't know if you were ever told, by by the old guard, just keep living, right?
Yes.
Like, oh, I don't get it. Just keep living, and
Yes.
and we can't avoid
Mm-hmm.
challenges in life.
Mm-mm.
They just happen, and I think with you and your resiliency and being able to overcome again and again, um, it's provided you with an instrument, a process to help
Yes.
other individuals navigate through these life's challenges, because we hear about what I like to call the second pandemic, which is mental well-being, right?
Yes.
And if we are unequipped or ill-equipped with the
Mm-hmm.
right tools and resources and community, we
Yes.
can find ourselves in a very compromising, self-compromising situation. So can you talk a little bit about, because I want to lean into your professional background and I want
Okay.
to lean into your spiritual gifting and that intersect.
Yes. And so for me, as you stated, life is going to happen. We can't avoid it. We can't avoid going through different traumas or different incidences just in life. The goal for me when writing this book was to show people about a resiliency that's not just the basic resilience where you just bounce back from something. I'm speaking about that optimistic resilience, where strategic resilience, where you bounce back without permanent defamation to your character or who you are. Because something or someone can bounce back, but are you bouncing back with the traumas of your past? Are you bouncing back with the same old mentality or the mindset of what you went through in your going through? And so for me, resilience is not just me being able to get back up, because life be lifing. You're gonna eventually get back up, but it's how you get back up as far as that mental capacity and that state of mind, and how you be able to navigate through your process in order to get back up in a sense of positivity on how to be able to transform that process of pain to power. That's a whole because many of us, we're gonna get back up. If you keep living, like you said, you will get back up. But how many people are getting back up and you're still walking in that old tsunami or that old state of mind or that old attitude, and you're allowing those things to be able to infect your now and your future, when your past is not for that purpose. Your past is to be back there for you to stand on, to get higher.
Right.
But if we are in a state where we're just bouncing back, getting back up from it, then I'm getting back up sometimes with a deformation that I'm not using in order to be able to move forward.
I like how you worded that. The we can self defame,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And we have to own that. If we
Yes.
want to see true transformation, we have to own where we are and be accountable for if
Yes.
we choose to just keep dragging that old baggage along.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes misery loves company, and we've been suffering so long
Mm-hmm.
that we don't know how to shift the mindset
Mm-hmm.
and realize we've been transformed, we've been delivered, right?
Yes.
But we're still acting like we're in bondage, or in that state of oppression.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'd like you to talk a little bit about when you have a client and they come to you and they pour their hearts out. It's like, I've gone through
Mm-hmm.
all of this, I read your book and it made me excited, but I don't know what to do with it. I'm hearing your story and I'm seeing some tips, but I don't know if I can do this by myself. What do you say to that person, or do you have programs that can actually help people navigate through through their pain to a promiseful, rich life?
Yes. So for me personally, a part of why I feel so blessed to be in this station or this position is because through my educational background, I've gone through the process of getting my doctoral degree in psychology, which allows me to be able to counsel, to be able to go, because there's a major difference in counseling and coaching, and I can do
Right.
both. And I've gone through the certifications in order to do both. So when I have a client that I'm dealing with, or that I'm going through the process with, there are times or moments when I have to make sure that they understand that you really need to be counseled, because a lot of people want coaching, and coaching doesn't deal with your past to take you to your future. Coaching takes what you have right now and it pushes you to the ultimate goal. Counseling will take you back to that past to bring you up to the standard so that you can move forward. So when I'm speaking with a client, I'm listening to be able to hear how they are already processing things by themselves in order to be able to map out a plan or to navigate a plan on how do we move from this to that. And that determines whatever their situation or their circumstance in that time. I do have what I call a butterfly boot camp, which is a boot camp that was made just in that moment for women who had gone through divorce, because I saw nothing that was out here at that time when I went through my first divorce that was helping women to be able to deal with their mindset, deal with their old baggage, deal with how they processed what they were going through, deal with being a single mom, or deal with being all of these entities, and helping them to be able to move forward. So there's several different approaches that I may have to a situation, but it does start with assessing where they are, and not just where they are physically, but where they are mentally.
I love that. We're going to do a quick break and come right back and talk a little bit more about how you can transform your mind and live the life of your dreams. We are back with Dr. Orienthia Speakman, and we're talking about Really God, the guide to bouncing back when life has knocked you down. And it is, as I mentioned, Women's History Month. I thought about when you were saying you looked around and you didn't see a program that fit you. And I want you to talk right now to some of our marginalized communities where our cultures may have conditioned us to keep things in, right? You don't air your dirty laundry. Counseling is not the things we do. And how do you help women overcome that so that they can get the support and the help they need and the resources and tools to transform their lives? Because I think this is really, really critical, that especially when we're looking at mental well-being, the psychologists, psychiatrists, for marginalized populations, for communities of color, Black and brown, the numbers aren't there. And people want to relate to someone who can get the experience or understand the culture from which they come. So I'm going to turn that over to you. If you can give a little insight on that, that would be great.
All right. So one of the things that I recognize and realize about my own self is the level of transparency that I have tried to walk in through my process. I often share that I too had to go through the counseling process when I went through my tsunamis. I openly share how the fact that it is not always that we don't have the resources, it's that we're not gravitating to the resources that are being presented, or the resources that are handed to us, but we're not taking it because we grew up with a background of saying, keep it silent. What goes on in the house stays in the house. What goes on behind closed doors stays behind closed doors. Well, those things that go on behind closed doors will eventually kill you, whether it's physically, mentally, spiritually, socially, financially. So one of the bigger ways in order to be able to move forward is to expose the very thing that you are in prison with. Meaning that psychological prison that has been built in our minds that tell us, I'm not crazy, so I'm not going to a therapist. Well, therapy is not for you to have that mindset that you're crazy. You're going to a therapist, to a psychologist, to a counselor in order to help you work through and sort out those things that you cannot do by yourself. One of the things on a spiritual perspective of it all is one of the things that the enemy loves to do is to keep us hidden in a corner by ourselves, which is a level of self-sabotage. Because when there is a hand that's been extended to you to get the help and you're not taking it, then you are leaving yourself behind that door to be able to fend and do something on your own that you aren't educated to do, you aren't equipped to do. And so what I like to do is I like to share with people that I sat on someone's couch, that I went to get help, aid, and assistance, because the things that were going on in my mental capacity was beyond what I could do in that moment. And at that time, I did not even have my degree completed or finished. So the fact that I went to counseling was a proponent of pushing me to say that this was an area where I wanted to be able to help other people. And so one of the biggest things is to be able to expose the fact that you have gone through this and this situation is beyond what you yourself can handle, endure. And if you desire to be better and to become the better version of yourself, you're going to have to reach out to that help. You're going to have to make that move to get to that help. And in our culture, we have been taught to be silent.
Right.
We have been taught that what we deal with is just between you and God. Well, guess what? God gives us counselors. God gives us therapists. If we research even from the spiritual perspective, Jesus was the master psychologist. But you have to be able to reach out and get the help.
I love what you said, and you said it's important to expose those things, and to expose requires us to be vulnerable, yes. Right, and break through again those limiting mindsets. Even though I think our communities and culture may have put things in place because they thought it would protect us, but ultimately it ends up hurting us, because if you feel like I can't reach out, I don't know who to talk to. And I love the fact that you share your story. You let them know, look, I was also a patient. I also went through, I needed coaching, I needed guidance, I needed support to navigate. So if I, now the teacher and physician, can needed that, then, you know, I think it places you, this is my opinion, as that trusted advisor. Right? It's not, you're not just speaking from book knowledge, it's lived experience, yes, and the deliverance that you've experienced.
Yes. And I love sharing that part or that portion of myself, because there were times when I wasn't vulnerable enough to let somebody know that I was hurting and in pain. But if you hurt long enough and you're in pain long enough, you'll go to that doctor or you'll go to that physician. So it's just a matter of you making a decision. As you said earlier, you said the word accountability. When are you going to be accountable to your better self to be able to get the help that you need? We all need help at some point in our life. We all need another hand at some point in our life. So when are you going to be accountable to your future self to say that now I need the help? Where can I get it?
That's powerful. When are you going to When are you going to be accountable to your future self to get the help that you need?
Mm-hmm.
That's something to really, really sit in and think about, right? We can stay in that pot
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
suffer
Mm-hmm.
unnecessarily, or
Mm-hmm.
reach out with that support, with that community, with the guidance, and trained guidance. Because I think,
Yes.
the word says, seek wise counsel. So
Yes.
be careful who you are sharing your crystal with, and make
Absolutely.
sure that they are accountable. Because sometimes, and I want to know your take on this before, because we're almost out of time.
Yes, ma'am.
I know sometimes individuals who are not trained will go and they will so-called counsel someone, and then they bring them into such a dark space, right? That they do not know how to get them back out. And suddenly, you find out, oh, someone has committed suicide, or someone now is, in the ward in the hospital dealing with severe depression and anxiety, because they took them to a place that they may have buried so deep, right? So if you're not trained on how to bring that up, that can be very dangerous. Can you
Very.
talk a little bit to our audience about
Yes.
that?
Yes. And so what I would say to that, LaWanna, is that we must, in part of that accountability to ourselves, to seek trained counsel. As I stated, there are some issues that we endure that is not for a coach to handle. It is for a trained counselor to handle, because when we understand the differences in what we are seeking as far as where we're trying to go in our accountability to our better selves, when you're trying to deal with your trauma, you should not be necessarily talking to a coach per se, unless they have the degree, knowledge, or the background in order to be able to deal with that situation. You should be seeking someone that you're looking for their credentials. It is very important, and it weighs my heart down how, even when it comes to the church, and I can't help but go back to the church because that's a part of my background, that's a part
Right.
of my deliverance, that's a part of who I am as an individual and how I present myself to the world. But every pastor, preacher is not a certified, trained coach or counselor.
Mm.
So we get into these dark spaces sometimes because we're expecting, or we're allowing people to slap a scripture on our situation when there is much work that needs to be done in order to help you to move forward. There are processes that you have to get done. So research who you are going to with what. Because if I'm going looking for a Nike tennis shoe, I'm not going to go to a grocery store. A grocery store has products, but a Nike store is specialized in what I am looking to heal from, deliver from, get help in. And so it's my responsibility as the recipient of whatever the counsel, the coach is, to do my research and to find out what's this person's background, what's their tenure, how long, research that person.
Yeah, I love that. We are almost out of time, Dr. Orienthia. I'm going to give you some personal time with our audience to share with them how they can connect with you, and any lasting message that you want to leave.
I often say that God will order your steps, but you will go nowhere until you make the decision to move. It's time to move out of the unwanted realities and time to move to your desired results. How do we do that? By reaching out to the resources that are made available to us. I am Orienthia Speakman, and I would love to be able to help you navigate through your processes, whether it's through counsel, whether it's through coaching, whether it's through seminars, books, all of those things, boot camps, and different things of that nature, because I am genuinely concerned about your mental state and pushing forward into the best version of who God has ordained for you to be. You can connect with me on Facebook at Orienthia Speakman. You can connect with me on IG as far as at Dr. O Speaks. My email address is speakoempowerment@gmail.com. And my website that you can go to is www.orienthiaspeakman.com. I look forward to serving with you. I look forward to helping you to be able to move forward to where you are trying to go into the better version of yourself.
Wow, this has been amazing. Thank you so much for joining me for a special edition of Power of the Pen, where we are saluting women who are living history, making history, and changing lives such as you. So I salute you and just thank you for being transparent, being vulnerable, because your story is changing lives, and you've got a process, right? It's not just talking, you've gone through the journey. So thank you so very much for being our special guest on Power of the Pen.
Thank you for having me.
And to our listening audience, we just want to remind you that Power of the Pen comes at you every week, every Sunday at 2 p.m. Eastern. And we look forward to seeing you next week for another edition of Power of the Pen. And just remember that in life and in business, when your vision intersects with opportunity, or when you feel that you're stuck and you choose to reach out to those who can guide you from the darkness into the light, just like Dr. Orienthia has said she can do, success is inevitable. We'll see you all next week. Bye, everyone.
Power of the Pen with LaWanna Bradford, expanding the impact and influence of authors from around the world. If you want to change the world, pick up your pen and write, said Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Books are uniquely portable magic. Power of the Pen spotlights authors from around the world. Listen as authors share messages that educate, motivate, inspire, and entertain. Join us each Sunday at 2 p.m. Eastern on e360tv.com.